Happy Sunday, everybody. Steve here. Sorry, it's been a couple of weeks since I've done one of these. I'm here and still here in Ohio going through training. And I was sitting out last night, just enjoying the evening out there. There's a fire pit at the hotel here. And I was struck up a conversation with a gentleman, a retired Army officer. And he was just passing through. But he works for this foundation that works with high school kids and talking about the future and different things they do with this foundation. But we struck up a conversation about work, and it's really interesting. I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe and his work, opening up different job opportunities for kids. You know, everybody doesn't have to go to college. Everybody probably shouldn't go to college. And he was talking about a girl he knew who's like 27 now. Her father was a welder, and she became a welder and became an underwater welder and is making, six figures, with zero debt. So anyway, we were talking about work and the dignity of work. And then I was reading in Proverbs chapter 26 this morning, verses 13 through 16. The lazy man says, "There's a lion in the road. A fierce lion is in the streets. As a door turns on its hinges, so does the lazy man on his bed. The lazy man buries his head in the bowl. It wearies him to bring it back to his mouth. The lazy man is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly." And what jumped out, of course, the conversation last night, but the verse that really jumped at me is just funny. The lazy man buries his head in the bowl and wearies him to bring it back to his mouth. And I was thinking about I remember one time we were out on the road or something, and we were all tired. I think we had flown a long day. This was back when I was flying in the Air Force, and we had flown a long day, and it came to me one day. We were sitting there eating, and all of us were just exhausted. And I was sitting there at the table. I was going, what I ought to invent is like this little ledge that you can put right on the side of the table. You could lay your head right here and just scoop the food to your mouth. I just always thought that was the funniest thing. And then I read that verse. I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. But I was thinking about that. I was thinking about, like I said, dignity of work, and I believe we were created for a purpose. And if you read all the way back in Genesis 2:15, that the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. So Adam had a job. And I've talked about this before, but I think there's dignity in work and putting your hands to something and doing something and with some purpose, and you move forward, you do something, and at the end of the day you look back and go, that was good. When God created the earth, he looked back and looked at it and said it was good, and saw that it was good. I'm sure he looked back and said, all right, look at that. There's pride in that. I think it's a good pride, not haughty pride, but pride like I worked hard at that, and that work is good, and that satisfaction that comes from it. And that's good for society. It's good for people. It's good for us to do that. And when you're lazy, and when you're the lazy man, like in these verses, and you don't do that, what you come on the backside of that? Where's the dignity? Where's the, you rolled over, you slept, you're proud of how long you slept, you got nothing done, your kids aren't fed, your house payment's not bad. That just really jumped out at me. And I was telling this guy last night, I read this book a few years ago. I might have talked about this already too, but this guy was going to buy a dairy farm. He wanted to buy a dairy farm, and he drove up to look at it and talked with the guy on the phone, and got out of the car and met him. And this gentleman's like 90, But he's still sprightly, getting around pretty good. But he's just like, it's about time to hang up the farm, and it's getting a little tough, at 90. And he's like, well, talking with the man, he's like, well, you've been doing this your whole life. Is it going to be hard to give it up? He goes, I haven't been doing it my whole life. I didn't start doing this till I was 60. And turns out, he had been an accountant and retired, and then just said, hey, I've always wanted to be a farmer. I'm going to buy this farm and start doing this. Well, it turns out, that he said that the fact that he had animals counting on him every day to get up out of bed and to come feed them and to take care of them and tend them when they're sick and all that, he had things dependent on him to do that. That's what gave him motivation to get up and get to work and get to, and take care of business, and I think that's the dignity. That's the dignity of work. It gives you, when you have purpose to move forward in life, when you have a reason to do it. Yeah, and I would say as well is, no matter what you do, I think, no matter how tedious or how much you think you hate your job and all of that, I think that there's something that can be added if you're a Christian. There's some purpose. The steps of the righteous are ordered by God. So if you're there and doing something, there's a purpose for that somewhere. And trust the Lord. It may be everything about your job is awful, but there's one person there that maybe you're there to be an encouragement for them, or a kind word or something like that. That could be it, but it's our attitude that we take into it. Speaking of attitude, I read there's some websites that's pilot forums, and where there's a lot of chit chat back and forth about this airline, that airline. Hey, what about this? Hey, what does everybody do? What kind of bag do people buy? All of this kind of stuff. And it's some of it's pretty good, but a lot of it's toxic. And I've kind of come to realize, man, it's the attitude you bring. It's the attitude you bring to the job when you show up. And if you show up expecting to be disappointed, expecting to be let down, expecting to be screwed over by your boss or whatever, boy, it seems to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you ask me. And having a positive attitude, realizing, what, I have a purpose. This is where the Lord wants me right now, and I'm going to step forward and do it the best I can with the best attitude and tend this garden. And things just seem to change. And you realize that a lot of it's us. It's our attitude. So anyway, all of that I think feeds into the lazy man verses here. So anyway, I hope this is a blessing to you, and it's just a little bit of what bounces around in my brain sometimes when I'm not studying. So speaking of which, I need to get back to it. So we'll see you next time. Take care.